Welcome to Okaloosa Eye on Crime. This is where we ask for your help so that local law enforcement can track down some of those wanted suspects that are on the run.
That's right, and we're going to get started with some high-profile cases. And right off the top, the Crestview Police Department is looking for information in connection to a recent homicide. Now, the Crestview Police and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement are asking for information in a shooting that killed a 22-year-old Crestview man. Officers responded to a shots fired report at the Crepe Myrtle Apartments. There at the corner of Lloyd Street South and Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue at around 1:20 a.m. on October 4th and discovered the victim had been shot in the head. Now, he later died at the hospital, and police say there were several people on scene that took off when they arrived, and they're still seeking some answers. And anybody with information about that homicide, give us a call, Emerald or 863-TIPS, or go to emeraldcoastcrimestoppers.com.
Okay, next up, here's a description you certainly don't hear every day. This involves a subway robber. It was a Destin restaurant that was held up on October 7th by an armed woman that the victim described as smelly and wearing a brown wig. The robber came into the subway on Airport Road around 10 p.m. several times, and then on the third entry, she demanded money, opened up her purse, and placed it on the counter. And the employee could see a large semi-automatic pistol inside that purse that she was holding, the robber was holding in her right hand. The woman left after getting a very small amount of cash, and the victim did describe her as a white female, around 45 years of age, approximately 5'5" and 170 pounds, with a thin face and thin lips. And she added that the woman was smelly and was wearing a dark brown jacket, brown pants, a wig, and prescription glasses.
Yeah, definitely not something we hear described every day.
Thankfully.
Deputies are also searching for some smash and grab vehicle burglars. On November 3rd, between 2 and 6 p.m., windows were smashed on 6 vehicles in several locations in Destin. The Destin Dog Park there by City Hall on Indian Bayou Trail, Red Door Saloon on Harbor Boulevard, Brewster's on Gulf Shore, and then one at National C-Store Park in Fort Walton Beach. Purses, wallets, and checkbooks were among the items, as well as a firearm that was stolen. Now, video showed this pictured vehicle entering and exiting the parking lot several times during the time of the 3 City Hall burglaries. It's a dark blue, late model, possibly 2017 or 18 Kia Sorento with dark tinted windows, and they did run the tag, and it appears to be a stolen tag from a vehicle on Dancing Cloud Court in Destin. So anybody with information about that, I know that that's something they've also had some problems with in Panama City as well. So,
and it's an ongoing problem all the time. It's why we're always stressing, lock your car, take your keys, and hide your valuables, because typically with these smash and grabs, it's because somebody's left something valuable laying in plain sight, plain view, and that's when they'll bust your windows out. Okay, next up, the Florida Highway Patrol is trying to identify a driver that was in a hit and run in Mary Esther. This took place back on November 2nd. Unfortunately, we don't have any photographs of this one, but it was a blue Ford Pinto involved in the crash, and it took place around 1:30 on Mary Esther Boulevard. The vehicle did have a Florida license plate, but unfortunately the tag returned as unknown. The driver of the Pinto was described as a white male with a mustache and glasses.
And I'm guessing there's probably not that many Pintos out there, so if you have any information, give us a call.
That's true.
And the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office is trying to identify some Fort Walton Beach vehicle burglar. Now, we know these aren't the greatest photos, but this guy burglarized several vehicles on Randall Roberts Road and Janet Lane in Fort Walton Beach back in August, so investigators would certainly like to know who he is. Anybody with information, remember, it's 100% anonymous.
That's right, and you can get a cash reward of up to $3,000 if you have information that leads to an arrest. That's higher reward, obviously, for the higher profile cases.
That's right. Now, Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers actually started in Okaloosa and Walton counties back in 1997, so we are celebrating 20 years of serving both Walton and Okaloosa counties, the communities there.
And you've been the coordinator how long?
17 years. Okay. Well, I've been with the program 17 years.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's been a great run, I can tell you that, and we've had in that time more than 30,000 tips received, nearly 2,000 arrests made, almost $300,000 in rewards were approved by the Civilian Board of Directors, and more than $2 million in stolen property and narcotics recovered, all because of Crime Stoppers tips.
That's what you call a success story. And the board members did celebrate recently with local law enforcement partners and community leaders at a luncheon October 19th. And that luncheon featured guest speaker, retired, say that for me, Multnomah County, Oregon Sheriff John Bonnell. Know who he is, I just don't know how to pronounce that county, but he's best known for hosting World's Wildest Police videos. We also want to say special thanks to the wonderful community for supporting Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers all these years and providing all those tips to take these bad guys and girls off our streets.
That's right. We certainly couldn't do it without you.
Now, school resource officers with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office recently underwent updated autism training, and that was courtesy of Autism Spectrum on the Emerald Coast. And the whole goal there, of course, to better understand and be able to interact with students with autism and some other of those neurologically based developmental disorders. Take a look at this. OCSO school resource officers are in constant training mode. Today, it's understanding autism or other neurologically based developmental disabilities. This 4-hour class with Autism Spectrum on the Emerald Coast covers everything from communication and social interventions to relaxation techniques. Autism goggles share ways an autistic child may perceive the world. The goal is better understanding, better knowledge, better techniques for interaction.
Additional training provides SROs the opportunity to understand what somebody in crisis is going through, or at least be sympathetic or empathetic to somebody, as well as the ability to have, if this person is in crisis, what do I do?
Any students that we have to deal with that are on the spectrum, I want to give our guys enough tools in their toolbox so that they understand what these students go through, and that they can deal with students better if they understand what they're going through. So we set this training up every year. We try to get some form of autism training.
Key strategies include modeling the tone of the student and avoiding verbal overload, providing direct positive feedback and specific praise, and using restraint as a very last resort.
And thanks again to Autism Spectrum on the Emerald Coast for providing that extremely valuable training to our school resource officers. And speaking of school resource officers, SRO Deputy Jenna Oliver has started the first Junior Deputy Safety Patrol program at Silver Sand School in Fort Walton Beach. A special pinning on ceremony was held to celebrate their achievement, hosted by Principal John Williams.
Yeah, you want to take a look at this. I think you'll enjoy it.
We have some very special seahorses we need to recognize in front of everybody. And so I'm going to, at this time, ask our school resource officer, Deputy Jenna Oliver, to come join me. Come on up, Deputy Oliver. I'm sure all of you know by now, Deputy Oliver has started our first ever Silver Sand Safety Patrol. Let's hear it for our Safety Patrol. Wonderful. So if I could at this time, let me have our honorary Safety Patrol members. Come on up, patrolman, come on. What we're going to do today, all seahorses, is we're going to have a pinning ceremony. That means we are recognizing them as Safety Patrol, and they will be getting their badges and earning them today. And before I get further into this and into the pinning, I want to let you know we got a special letter from Senator George Gaynor, and it says, "Dear Mr. Williams," that's me. "Dear Mr. Williams, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all 7 of the students at Silver Sand School who are now members of the first Silver Sand School Junior Deputy Safety Patrol. I enjoyed seeing their picture in the news. I would appreciate you extending my congratulations to each of your students and letting them know how much we appreciate each and every one of them." So that's from Senator George Gaynor, and we thank him for recognizing our wonderful Safety Patrol. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Deputy Oliver so she can start with our pinning ceremony. All right, helping us today, Deputy Oliver, is Lieutenant Venuti. Everybody say hello to Lieutenant Venuti. First up, pinning, David Blackman. Next up, Erica Blackman. Next up is Markel Foreman.
Ready? Yes.
Next Safety Patrol member is Trey James.
Woo, Trey.
Yeah, Trey!
Our next Safety Patrol member, Mr. Willie Blackman.
Yeah, Willie!
High five.
That's my buddy.
Next Safety Patrol member, Miss Ashley Cronin. And then last but not least, probably our happiest patrolman, Mr. Javon Dewsbury. Congratulations to our safety patrol. Let's hear it one more time for them, Deputy Oliver and Lieutenant Benuti. Thank you so much.
And if you're not familiar with Silver Sands School, it serves about 170 students with a range of disabilities, and they're also a range of ages from 3 to 22 from both Okaloosa and Walton counties.
And now let's get to our first set of individuals who are out roaming around with warrants, and we just want to remind you they are wanted as of today's taping date, which is November 13th, 2017. Now first up is a new face to the show, Caleb Ladour Geddes. He's 28 years old, and he's wanted for violation of probation for lewd and lascivious on a victim under 16. And some good news, that Crestview Police Department attempted homicide suspect Jordan Scott Stewart is in custody.
But we're still looking for Cody Weiszhaar, a 25-year-old wanted for VOP for felony battery, last known to live on Oakland Circle in Fort Walton Beach.
And we can also remove Cedric Desmond Barron II from our wanted list because he has been located as well.
Moving on then to Reginald Muse, wanted for VOP on grand theft, burglary, and aggravated stalking charges. Take a look at Jeffery Alexander Turner. Turner's wanted for failure to appear on charges of burglary, fraud, and criminal mischief.
And the Walton County Sheriff's Office is searching for 40-year-old Chad Alford for aggravated assault and cause cruel death, pain, or suffering to an animal, last known to live on Powell Drive up in Niceville.
Definitely someone we want to track down. Also up, Dennis Frederick Taylor Jr., last known address Brook Street in Fort Walton Beach. He's wanted for failure to appear on charges of fraud, providing false statements to obtain unemployment compensation.
And William Brian Harnish, who was last known to live in Freeport, he's wanted for violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance and possession of drug paraphernalia.
This is Todd Eric Logan, and Logan is wanted by law enforcement for uttering a forged banknote.
And 19-year-old Leanne Summer Lawson is wanted for violation of probation for possession of cocaine, last known to live on Seibert Avenue in Destin.
Moving over to Defuniak Springs, back on October 27, 2016, Lucas Lorenzo Williams is wanted for armed robbery that took place, and he was last known to live in Pensacola.
And last up on this list is Jonathan James Lucas. He's 46 years old, and he's wanted by the Defuniak Springs Police Department for armed robbery. Now, we want to say congratulations to the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office Communication Center. They recently achieved accreditation showcasing their commitment to improve delivery of professional services to assist in public safety.
Yep, and they do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is a big accomplishment for them, and it also complements the other accreditation by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, which is the state accreditation and national law enforcement accreditation. So good job there on multiple levels.
Yeah, those folks really, really do a great job. Now, Okaloosa Sheriff's investigators have spent years working to identify a woman whose badly decomposed remains were found September 15th, 1994 off Interstate 10 near Exit 11 up in Holt, Florida. The victim was picked up at a truck stop near Tampa and is believed to possibly be from the Central or South Florida area.
We want you to take a look at the details in this cold case. This jewelry that's been stored in an evidence folder at the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office since 1994 is some of the few clues left attesting to a life of a woman who investigators believe died violently, although the exact manner of death is undetermined. There's also the flowered print dress with a matching short jacket shown in these photos that she'd been wearing. Okaloosa Sheriff's investigator Travis Robinson says the woman's badly decomposed remains were found September 15, 1994. That was off Interstate 10 near Exit 11 in Holt.
The remains were found by a work crew. I believe it was a prison work crew. And according to the report, the medical examiner's report, they estimate it was probably there approximately 12 weeks, 3 months. We believe she was picked up at a truck stop in the Tampa area, and from what we understand, she was supposedly to be en route to the Reno, Nevada or Lake Tahoe area. There is some indication that she may have had some residence in Miami, but we haven't been able to verify that at all.
In fact, all these years later, her identity remains a total mystery. In 2007, an artist made these fresh sketches of what she's believed to have looked like.
She's estimated to be somewhere between late 20s to early 30s, approximately 5 foot 4 inches tall, and somewhere in the area of 110 to 120 pounds. Her hair color appears to be a dark brown or maybe auburn color, and with either blonde roots or blonde streaks in her hair.
Clay modeling had been done in the past, developed from the victim's skull, but the distinctive jewelry may be the items that could spark someone's memory.
If somebody knew her and knew her well, then they may know that she was wearing that type of jewelry all the time, that she wore those rings all the time or whatever, and hopefully we'll be able to identify her that way.
So at this point, the best hope of cold case investigators is to have as many people as possible take a look at the jewelry and the artist's sketches. Robinson's trying to get these images publicized nationwide, but especially in the South Florida area. The goal is to get that one phone call that will allow investigators to identify this victim and bring closure to any surviving family. If you have any information, contact the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office at 850-651-7400 or your local Crime Stoppers agency. Now keep in mind there have been some leads, and actually some pretty good leads they thought over the years, but none of those have panned out, so they're hoping that something's going to change here soon.
That's right, and there's always hope that that will change if someone knows something that they are now willing to share. And remember, you can do it anonymously through Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers, and if you do, if your tip does lead to an arrest, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000, 100% anonymous.
Moving on now to the next list of wanted individuals, we've got Tabitha Cummins. She's wanted for revoking bond on a charge of grand theft. Last known address was on Bradford Street in Fort Walton Beach.
And 33-year-old Timothy James Howard is wanted for larceny, resisting an officer in recovery of stolen property, and failure to appear for fraud. Last known address was on Bearhead Road up in Definiak Springs.
Stephen Sherman's wanted for extortion or threats. Last known to live on Vinings Way in Destin.
And the Walton County Sheriff's Office is still searching for Pamela Schutte for trafficking in a controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance by misrepresentation, fraud, forgery, or deception, and she was last known to live out in Santa Rosa Beach.
Edward Fountain's last known address was up in Crestview. He's 37 years old, wanted for failure to appear for carrying a concealed weapon, possession of a weapon and ammo by a convicted felon, possession of a controlled substance, and narcotics equipment, as well as a traffic violation. Looking for Shamus Marshall. He's 22 and he's wanted for violating probation on charges of battery and fraud. Marshall's last known address was in Mary Esther.
And the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office is looking for 48-year-old George Monroe Emmerich II, and he's wanted for violation of probation for domestic violence, strangulation, and aggravated battery.
But we're going to check off Tamara Acevedo. She has been located since our last show.
But we're still searching for 46-year-old David Brent Evans, and he's actually being sought by the Fort Walton Beach Police Department for credit card theft and fraudulent use of a credit card, last known to live in Freeport.
And this next guy has been on the show for a long time. I really wish we could take him off. Alexis Mondragon, wanted by the Sheriff's Office in Okaloosa County for sexual battery, for sexual offenses against a child, and for lewd and lascivious molestation. Take a look at his picture. Please contact us if you know where he can be located.
And Walton County deputies are looking for Brittney Sanders, and she's wanted for violation of probation for create, use, or possess counterfeit credit cards with intent to use counterfeit information.
And sticking in Walton County, Joshua James Picard, wanted for VOP on possession with intent to sell or manufacture or deliver a controlled substance, possession of marijuana, and possession of paraphernalia.
And Fort Walton Beach Police are also looking for Juan Marquez for trafficking and stolen property, last known to live on Jonquil Avenue in Fort Walton Beach.
And summing up this list, last is Roderick James Rutterson Jr. He's wanted for possession of synthetic narcotics within 1,000 feet of a school and failure to appear on a driving with a suspended or revoked license, last known to live on Mooney Road in Fort Walton Beach.
The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office recently took a report after a special needs man who relied on his bike for transportation said someone stole it from behind the business where he works in Fort Walton Beach. Now, due to the situation, we actually posted the information and description of the bike on our Facebook page and asked for the public's help in trying to locate the bike.
Then right after that, the page was literally swamped with offers from people in the community who wanted to donate towards a bike or they wanted to purchase him a new bicycle outright. Well, come to find out, the Sheriff's Office had already stepped into action, making contact with St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Destin. They've got a bike program which reaches out and helps needy folks. And deputies were able to not only get a bike for Darrell Oliver, but they were also able to get a brand new bike lock to protect it, which is important. These pictures we're showing are courtesy the Northwest Florida Daily News. The paper came out to cover the story, and the reporter says initially Darrell thought he was in trouble when he saw all those deputies' cars, but once he found out they were there to replace his stolen bike, it was all smiles.
That's right, and thanks to all who offered to help, the deputies and Chaplain Larry Carter who made the replacement happen, and the Northwest Florida Daily News for sharing a story and these photos, of course, that made us all feel great about our community.
Yeah, that was just a really feel-good story. Yep. And a big shout out to Synovus, Coastal Bank and Trust, and their Here Matters Honoring Our Heroes campaign. As part of that effort to honor first responders, they held an extremely successful blanket drive, and they delivered all those donations to the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office.
That's right, and deputies will be handing them out to people in need that they encounter, whether it's a homeless person on the street, a family that's lost everything in a fire, or a frightened child, maybe at one of the scenes that they're on.
Our company, Synovus, has a 5-state footprint, and company-wide, the month of September was our Honoring Heroes theme. It's part of a Here Matters campaign that we do, which just means we want to be a part of our community. So the Here Matters campaign spawned the Honoring Heroes, so we were honoring law enforcement, first responders, fire, EMS, that kind of thing. And so we just wanted to reach out and see what the need was. The deputies mentioned that this is things that they have a need for from time to time, come in contact with individuals, and so we stood up for the call.
And as you can see, that's a whole lot of blankets, and I know the deputies are certainly going to be able to use those. They'll come in handy, especially with the winter season coming along. So we want to give a special thanks to Jeff Hooten and Jill Kendall, both with Synovus.
Absolutely. And moving now to our final round of fugitives. Mark Robert Fitzgerald is up first on this list, wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for grand theft and contracting without a license.
Walton County is also searching for 39-year-old Edward J. Stanley, and he's wanted for failure to appear on multiple counts of uttering a forged instrument and grand theft.
Charles Keith Wallace wanted for possession of a controlled substance without a prescription.
Austin Wade Galloway, last known to live on Woodwind Drive in Destin, is wanted for failure to appear for burglary.
And John Henry Bonner is another frequent flyer on this show. He's been on here for a while. He's wanted by the Fort Walton Beach Police Department for grand theft and violation of Pawnbrokers Act, as well as non-payment of child support.
Yeah, and Daniel Wesley Arthur is another familiar face as well, wanted for felony neglect of an elderly person or disabled adult without causing great bodily harm, possession of a controlled substance by misrepresentation, fraud, forgery or deception, and theft. So a laundry list there, last known to live in Fort Walton Beach.
And you can contact Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers if you have any information on where to find Samuel Thomas III. He used to live in Shalimar, and he's wanted for VOP on charges of providing false information to a pawnbroker, false imprisonment, and grand theft.
And 38-year-old Tiffany Michelle Bennett is wanted for violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance.
Next up, Clifton Ray Edwards, wanted for failure to appear on a charge of carrying a concealed weapon.
James Anthony Williams is wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
Also trying to track down Andrea Joy Myres, wanted for failure to appear on a charge of theft, last known to live on Gibson Road in Fort Walton Beach.
And Tashawn Coward Sr. is wanted for driving while license suspended or revoked and non-payment of child support, last known to live on Scranton Street in Fort Walton Beach.
Militia Mary Keeney, wanted for failure to appear, possession of a controlled substance. Last known address was Airport Road, Destin.
And we don't have a photo of this individual, but if you know where he is, certainly give us a call. Jeffrey Nelson Grimes, and he's wanted for possession of a photograph of sexual performance of a child, last known to live in Destin.
Okay, and wrapping it up, James Daniel Watford Jr., wanted for VOP on a charge of hit and run at a crash involving injuries. His last known address was Pandora Drive in Crestview. And that's going to do it for this version of Okaloosa Eye on Crime.
Thanks for joining us.